And if you study anyone who's truly achieved lasting success, real success, not just temporary wins, you'll find that what separates them is not just intelligence or luck or even resources. It's their habits, what they do day in and day out, the patterns they've trained into their identity, the choices they've automated so well, they don't even have to think about them anymore. Because that's the real power of a habit. Once it's locked in, it runs without friction, without negotiation, without hesitation. And when your habits are aligned with success, you don't have to chase progress. It chases you. You don't have to talk yourself into discipline. It's just who you are. You don't rely on motivation because you've built a structure that works when feelings don't. Most people want success, but they're still negotiating with themselves, still rationalizing bad choices, still delaying the changes they know they need to make. And it's not because they're not serious. It's because their habits are not working for them. Their habits are dragging them back to their old level, pulling them toward their old identity, keeping them anchored to the version of themselves they're trying to outgrow. But that can change. You can train new patterns. You can condition new behaviors. You can rewire your instincts to serve your purpose. It doesn't happen all at once, but it starts with clarity, knowing exactly what habits matter most, knowing which ones carry the most weight, knowing which ones will make the biggest difference, not just in your results, but in your self-respect. Because success doesn't start with what you want. It starts with what you're willing to repeat every day, without excuse, without delay, without waiting for the right mood or perfect circumstances. You become successful by doing successful things on purpose with consistency until it becomes your normal. These habits are not optional. They're not ideas to consider or tactics to try when you're in the mood. They are the foundation, the blueprint, the pillars of a life that is not only productive, but powerful. Not only efficient, but deeply aligned. Not only filled with action, but anchored in purpose. And once you adopt them, not as a checklist, but as a way of being, you will feel it. Your clarity sharpens. Your energy rises, your confidence locks in, because your life is no longer led by emotion. It's led by intention. The first habit is non-negotiable. Wake up on your terms. Not when you feel like it. Not when your alarm has been snoozed 3 times. Not when the world starts demanding your attention, but when you said you would. That single decision to get up at the time you committed to sets the tone for your entire day. It tells your subconscious, my word matters. My schedule matters. I lead, I don't follow. Because if you start your day by negotiating with yourself, that pattern follows you. You hit snooze at 6 a.m. and by 9 a.m. you're still compromising. You delay that uncomfortable task. You skip the workout. You postpone the difficult conversation. It all started with that first moment when you told yourself it was okay to break the promise. Discipline starts the moment your eyes open, and that moment is sacred. That's where momentum is either created or destroyed. If you win your morning, you stack early victories. You move into your day with clarity, not chaos. You begin with control, not reaction. You anchor yourself before the world pulls at you. Most people don't realize how vulnerable the first hour of the day is. You need a fortress in the morning, a repeatable, reliable process that primes your body, your mind, and your spirit for execution. This is not about being perfect. It's about being deliberate. You don't need 3 hours of journaling and a 90-minute meditation. You need rhythm. You need clarity. You need a flow that you own. That might mean getting up 30 minutes earlier and sitting in silence. It might mean writing down your top 3 priorities. It might mean movement, breath, prayer, or reflection. The what doesn't matter as much as the why. The why is simple. Because you said you would. Because your time is sacred. Because you will no longer live like your life is happening to you. And once you begin your day with discipline, you build confidence. Quiet confidence. Not the kind that needs to be shouted. The kind you carry in your body, in your tone, in the way you walk into a room. Because you're no longer showing up as someone hoping the day goes well. You're showing up as someone who's already claimed it. This habit builds trust, not with others, with yourself. And that's the most important trust there is. Because if you can't trust yourself to get out of bed when you said you would, how will you trust yourself to make hard decisions when it counts? If you can't lead yourself when it's uncomfortable, how will you lead others when pressure rises? This is not about the morning. It's about the message. It's about building an identity. It's about removing the first compromise of the day so that you stop living in negotiation and start living in alignment. Every day you honor this habit, you raise your standard. You expand your capacity. You reinforce the belief that you are not controlled by emotion. You are led by vision. And every day you skip it, you reinforce the opposite. So it matters. It all matters. So make the decision tonight, not tomorrow morning. Decide what time you're waking up and then commit. Set your alarm. Set the intention. And when it rings, don't think. Don't argue. Don't analyze. Stand up. Own the moment. Lead your day. Because that habit done consistently will change how you see yourself. And once that changes, everything else follows. The second habit is simple, but most people ignore it. Plan your day before the world does it for you. Do not begin in chaos. Do not begin by reacting. Do not hand your time, your energy, and your priorities over to whatever shows up first. That is how average people live. On defense. Constantly responding. Constantly putting out fires. Constantly wondering where the day went. You cannot lead your life from a place of reaction if you don't decide what matters most before the day begins. Everything will feel important. Every message will feel urgent. Every task will feel necessary. And you'll spend your time being busy instead of effective. You'll go to bed tired, but not fulfilled. Worn out, but not proud. Planning is not about having a perfect calendar. It's not about micromanaging every hour. It's about clarity. It's about knowing what matters most today and then making space for it, creating room to go deep, to focus, to execute. Because you cannot do high-level work when you're guessing what to do next. That means you must build a planning ritual, a repeatable rhythm that grounds you before you begin. Maybe it's at night. Maybe it's first thing in the morning. But it happens before the noise hits, before your inbox, before the television, before the world gets loud. Because once it does, it's already too late. You begin by asking one question. What does winning look like today? Not how much can I do, not how busy can I stay, but what moves the needle? What action, if done today, will make the biggest difference in my goals, in my discipline, in my character? That is your target. Then you structure the rest around it. You don't try to do everything. You focus on what matters. You block the time. You protect the time. You don't let it get buried under emails, calls, errands, and noise. You treat it like it's sacred, because it is, because your future depends on it. This habit forces you to live intentionally. It makes you stop. think, choose. You're not just drifting into your day, you're designing it. You're stepping in with purpose, with clarity, with leadership. That is how momentum is built. One clear day at a time. And when you do this consistently, something shifts. You start to feel less overwhelmed, less scattered, less behind. Because now you know what to say yes to. More importantly, you know what to say no to. Every decision no longer feels like a crisis. You've already made the most important ones. You build confidence, not the kind that comes from talk, but the kind that comes from progress. Because now your goals are being translated into action. Now your time is serving your purpose. Now you're living in alignment instead of in reaction. Planning builds integrity. Because once your plan is on paper, it becomes a commitment. It becomes something you measure yourself against. Did I follow through? Did I stay on task? Did I live today the way I said I would? That level of honesty sharpens you. It holds you. It protects you from your own excuses. And you're not doing it for productivity's sake. You're doing it for discipline, for alignment, for identity. You're saying, this is who I am now. Someone who doesn't live at the mercy of distraction. Someone who doesn't leave my direction up to chance. And yes, it's uncomfortable at first because structure feels restrictive when you're used to chaos. But over time, you'll start craving it because structure brings peace. You no longer wonder what to do. You no longer guess. You just execute. You move with clarity. You win the day. So build the habit. Sit down. Write it out. Even if it's messy. Even if it's 5 minutes. Do it anyway. Stack your priorities. Schedule them. Honor them. And repeat until it's who you are. Until you no longer need to think about it because it's just how you live. The third habit is a game changer, but only if you take it seriously. Guard your focus, not casually, not when it's convenient, relentlessly, because focus is not something you're born with. It's not a personality trait. It's a discipline, a skill, and if you don't build it, the world will destroy it. We live in a world that profits from your distraction. That's not theory, that's reality. Everywhere you turn, someone's trying to steal your attention. A headline, a commercial, a quick dopamine hit. And if you let them, they will run your life. Not because you don't care, but because you didn't choose to care about the right things. Focus is your most valuable asset. Because time without focus is wasted. Energy without direction is scattered. Discipline without clarity burns out. But when you lock in, when your attention sharpens, you become powerful. You move differently. You execute faster. You go deeper. But you have to protect it. That means fewer tabs open. That means one task at a time. That means building blocks of uninterrupted work, not hoping for them, scheduling them, defending them, creating boundaries around them like your life depends on it, because it does. You cannot become elite while multitasking. You cannot master your craft if you're distracted every 5 minutes. You cannot make clear decisions when your mind is flooded with fragments. Every distraction costs you more than you think. It's not just the seconds you lose, it's the momentum, the depth, the mental rhythm. And once that rhythm breaks, it takes time to rebuild. So build a system. Start with small windows, 25 minutes, 35 minutes, no distractions, no TV, one task, full effort, then rest, then repeat. This is not about working longer. It's about working deeper. It's about training your brain to stay in the work long enough to do something meaningful. And if you do this consistently, your mental stamina expands. What used to feel impossible becomes your new baseline. You no longer need to constantly switch tasks. You stop chasing stimulation. You start seeking focus. And your mind becomes your ally instead of your enemy. You begin to feel something rare. Peace. Not silence. Not boredom. Peace. The kind that comes when your mind is present. When it's not being hijacked every few minutes. When you're in control, not your inbox, not your impulses. You. That kind of peace is powerful. It makes you calmer in pressure, sharper in decision-making, stronger in execution. Because you're not scrambling anymore. You're anchored, you're grounded, you're intentional. And that's when your life starts to speed up. Not because you're doing more, but because you're doing less with more force. This is when you begin to separate yourself from everyone else. Because most people never train focus. They give in to distraction like it's normal. They brag about being busy but can't hold attention for more than 10 minutes. They start 100 things and finish none. But you're different now. You've chosen to live differently, to sharpen instead of scatter, to be deliberate instead of reactive, to choose what matters instead of being pulled by what's loud. That's what makes you dangerous. That's what makes you effective. That's what builds the life other people only talk about. And it all begins with how you treat your attention. It's not a suggestion. It's not a maybe. It's a standard. Because once you raise your standard for focus, your results start catching up. Fast. Because now you're locked in. Now you're consistent. Now you're lethal. The fourth habit is one that will test your discipline at a deeper level than almost anything else. It's simple in theory, but powerful in practice. Do what you said you would, especially when the feeling is gone. The moment you made the decision, you were clear. You were committed. You knew why it mattered. But then time passed. You got tired, life got noisy, and now that commitment feels heavy. This is the gap that separates the ones who say they want it from the ones who actually build it. Following through, not once, not when it's easy, not when it's fun, but every time, on time, as promised, to yourself. Because that's where real confidence is born, not from wins, not from praise, but from self-trust. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you add a brick to the foundation of your belief. Every time you break it, you chip away at that trust. You reinforce the identity of someone who doesn't finish. And once that identity sets in, even the best plans collapse. This is about more than productivity. This is about who you are. Because the moment you decide to stop negotiating with your commitments is the moment everything else begins to align. Your energy sharpens. Your direction clears. Your sense of self deepens. You stop wondering if you're capable because you've got the receipts. But you have to be relentless, because there will be days when your body hurts, when your schedule is full, when the emotion you felt when you made the commitment has disappeared. And on those days, you show up anyway. Not because you're a machine, not because you never feel resistance, but because you've made a decision that your word is law. That's the difference between amateurs and professionals. Amateurs do what they feel. Professionals do what they decided. Amateurs wait for motivation. Professionals wait for nothing. They show up, they execute, and then they show up again. So whatever it is, your morning routine, your training, your nutrition, your journaling, your preparation, you treat it like non-negotiable, like brushing your teeth, like showing up to work. You don't need to feel like it. You just do it. And that discipline changes you. It begins to infect every area of your life. You start noticing where else you've been inconsistent. You start catching the small compromises, the skipped workouts, the unspoken words, the delayed actions. You see them now because you're living with a higher level of integrity. And that integrity builds presence. People can feel it. You walk into a room differently when you trust yourself. When you know that the person behind the eyes keeps their promises. When you're not carrying the weight of all the things you said you'd do, but didn't. And yes, it's going to be uncomfortable. At first, it might feel unnatural, but that's only because the old version of you is still louder than the new one. The old identity is used to comfort. It's used to quitting early, to blaming the schedule, to needing to be in the mood. And now you're starving that identity. You're starving it by following through, by refusing to delay, by refusing to wait for ideal conditions. You've decided that what you said when you were clear means more than how you feel when you're tired. And that shift is everything. It means that you're not just chasing your goals. You're building the version of you who can handle them. And that version doesn't need hype, doesn't need praise, doesn't need accountability from the outside, because they've trained it into themselves from repetition, from grit, from consistency. So from now on, every promise you make, you keep, especially to yourself. Not because it's easy, not because it's convenient, but because it's who you are now. And that identity, that's the real win. The fifth habit is the anchor that keeps all the others from drifting. Protect your energy, not your mood, not your comfort, not your opinion, your energy. Because energy is not just physical, it's emotional, mental, and spiritual. And if you give it to the wrong things, you'll find yourself exhausted before you ever get to what matters. Most people don't manage energy. They chase it. They burn it. They waste it. They give it away to things that don't move their life forward. Drama, distraction, doubt. They feed people who drain them. They indulge in thoughts that paralyze them. And they wonder why they're always tired. You are not tired because you're doing too much. You're tired because you're doing too many things that don't matter. Too many things that don't align. Too many things that rob you of momentum. And the only way to fix it is to become ruthless with what you allow in your space. That means boundaries. That means clarity. That means protecting your mornings, protecting your priorities, protecting your mind from things that look urgent but aren't. That means saying no more often. That means auditing the people, the conversations, and the patterns that leave you feeling small. This is not about being selfish. This is about being strategic, because your energy is your fuel. And you cannot build an extraordinary life with a drained tank. You cannot stay disciplined, focused, consistent, and creative if you are constantly empty. So you learn to guard it. You learn to recognize what gives it back and what takes it away. And you stop justifying the things that cost you too much. That relationship you keep tolerating because it's familiar. That routine that starts with checking your email and ends with anxiety. That project that no longer aligns but keeps draining your time. They all have a cost. You're not being mean by cutting them off. You're being responsible. Because you can't say yes to your highest purpose while giving your best energy to your lowest priorities. You can't serve your mission while tolerating chaos. You can't move with intensity while entertaining noise. This means you must protect your internal energy, your thoughts, because every thought carries weight. Every thought takes up space. And most people are walking around with minds full of clutter, regret, comparison, fear, narratives that don't belong to them, scripts they didn't write but still repeat. You must reclaim that space. You must replace thought patterns that drain you with ones that strengthen you. Every time you catch yourself saying, I'm behind, I can't do this, I never follow through, you stop it. You rewrite it. You say, I am in control now. I move with purpose. I protect what matters. Because your thoughts are not just observations, they are instructions. And the more often you repeat them, the deeper they go. The more you rehearse weakness, the more your life reflects it. The more you rehearse strength, the more you begin to embody it, not just emotionally, but biologically. Your energy is shaped by how you treat your body, how you move, what you eat, how you breathe, what you drink. You don't need to be perfect, but you do need to be intentional, because low energy makes everything harder. Every decision, every interaction, every habit, and high energy makes everything easier. You train your body to work with you, not against you. You drink water before caffeine. You get sunlight before the TV light. You move every day, even when you don't feel like it. Because motion generates emotion. And stillness, when it becomes your default, robs you of life. So you stop waiting to feel energetic. You generate it. You fuel it. You choose it through your actions. You choose it through your inputs. You choose it through your environment. And you defend it without guilt. Because no one else will protect it for you. The world will keep pulling. It will keep asking. It will keep offering quick fixes and dopamine hits. But you're different now. You protect the fire inside you. You don't let it be smothered by obligations, noise, or emotion. You live by one rule: protect the energy that builds the life. Because if you lose that, you lose everything. The sixth habit is one that rarely gets talked about, but it sits at the center of sustained growth. Reflect with brutal honesty, not occasionally, not when things fall apart, consistently. Because without reflection, your habits are guesses, your patterns are invisible, and your progress is accidental. Success is not about doing more. It's about doing the right things, better, sharper, faster. But if you never stop to measure, to observe, to question your own behavior, you'll keep repeating what feels familiar instead of doing what actually works. Most people don't reflect because they're afraid of what they'll find. It's easier to stay distracted, easier to stay busy, easier to keep moving than to stop and admit, I'm not doing the work I said I would. I've been avoiding the truth. I've been productive, but not aligned. But reflection is not judgment. It's not shame. It's not guilt. It's clarity. And clarity is freedom. Because the moment you see the truth, you can change. The moment you see the pattern, you can shift it. The moment you face the weakness, you can strengthen it. So you build the habit of looking in the mirror daily, not with emotion, with ownership. You ask the hard questions. Where am I slipping? What am I avoiding? What am I tolerating that's not aligned with who I'm becoming? What did I say I would do, and did I do it? And you answer honestly. No spin, no story, just truth. Because that kind of honesty is rare. It's rare because it's hard. It forces you to look at your actions, not your intentions, your results, not your excuses, your behavior, not your self-image. But once you get comfortable with that kind of honesty, you stop fearing feedback. You stop flinching at correction. You start craving it, because now it's not about your ego, it's about your growth. And nothing accelerates growth like consistent, honest feedback, especially from yourself. That means you must build time into your schedule for reflection. not when it's convenient, not when you feel like it, as a discipline, as a non-negotiable, even 10 minutes. Sit down, open the journal, ask the questions, write the answers every day. Because this is where wisdom is formed. This is where clarity is refined. This is where identity is reinforced, not through achievement, but through self-awareness, through knowing where you are and where you're going, and refusing to lie about the gap in between. You begin to see patterns, not just in your habits, but in your mindset, the way you respond to pressure, the way you handle setbacks, the way you talk to yourself when no one else is around. And once you see those patterns, you gain the power to rewire them. Because self-awareness without action is useless. You don't reflect to feel better. You reflect to get better, to adjust, to recommit, to course correct. You take what you see and you translate it into change. Not someday. Now. That's how you become dangerous. Because now, you're not just moving, you're learning. You're not just executing, you're evolving. You're not just showing up, you're sharpening. And over time, that sharpness separates you. Most people are just repeating their last 30 days. Same habits, same patterns, same mistakes, slightly different goals. But not you. You're growing. You're adapting. Because you refuse to go blind. You refuse to let another week pass without seeing where you stand. And the more you reflect, the more precise you become with your words, with your time, with your goals. You stop wasting energy on things that don't move you. You stop making the same mistakes twice. You become efficient, sharp, intentional. And that efficiency, that's how momentum is built. Quietly, privately. Not from big wins, but from daily adjustments, 1 degree at a time. Until suddenly you look up and realize you're living at a level most people only dream about. Not because you had more time, not because you had more talent, but because you were honest enough to keep checking the mirror and bold enough to change what you saw. The 7th habit is a force multiplier, something that amplifies every other decision you make. It's simple to understand and rare to see. Speak with clarity, not hype, not fluff, not noise, clarity. Say what you mean what you say, and speak in a way that strengthens your identity, not weakens it. Because your words are not just sounds, they're seeds. You plant them. And over time, they grow into beliefs. And those beliefs shape your behavior. And your behavior shapes your results. So when your language is sloppy, your outcomes are too. When your words are vague, your actions are inconsistent. Every time you say, I'll try, you give yourself an exit. Every time you say, I don't know, you abandon your ability to figure it out. Every time you say, we'll see, you trade certainty for confusion. It seems harmless, but it's not. It's training. It's conditioning. It's rehearsal for mediocrity. So you train your mouth to match your mission. You stop speaking like someone who's unsure. You stop leaking power in every conversation. You stop watering down your goals because you're afraid of judgment. And you start owning your words like they matter, because they do. That means you eliminate passive language. You don't hope to follow through, you commit. You don't want to be more disciplined, you decide. You don't wish for better outcomes, you create them. This isn't about sounding confident. It's about speaking from alignment. This means you stop entertaining low-level conversations, the kind that feed gossip, the kind that drain energy, the kind that keep people stuck in cycles of complaint. You don't participate, not because you're better, but because you've decided to live at a different level. And when your words are clean, your life follows. You begin to feel more certain, not because everything is easy, but because your direction is clear. You say what matters, you cut what doesn't. And that clarity shows up in your execution. You stop wasting time with vague commitments. You stop creating confusion around your priorities. You communicate like someone who respects their mission. And when you do that, people start respecting you differently. Not just because of what you say, but because of how you live. This habit transforms your internal dialogue because how you speak out loud reinforces how you speak to yourself. Every "I can't" becomes a wall. Every "I'm not good at that" becomes a script. Every "that's just how I am" becomes a prison. But when you shift your words, you shift your wiring. You start saying, "I can learn this. I will figure it out. This might be hard, but I don't need easy. I need aligned." These aren't just phrases. They are anchors, markers, North Stars that remind you who you're becoming. And the more you speak with that kind of clarity, the less you'll need external motivation, because now your words reinforce your identity. They sharpen your focus. They clarify your next step. And over time, your language stops reflecting your past and starts directing your future. That's how leaders talk. Not with arrogance, but with authority. Not to impress, but to align. Not to please, but to lead. Because their voice is an extension of their values. Their language matches their behavior. Their presence sharpens the room. You don't get there by accident. You get there by listening to yourself, by paying attention to your words, by cutting the ones that don't serve you, by repeating the ones that anchor you, until it's not something you have to try to do, it's something you just are. So from this day forward, speak like your words matter, because they do. Speak like someone who's building something that can't be broken. Speak like someone who's already decided, and watch how everything else starts rising to meet you. The eighth habit is a foundation that most people skip, and it's why their success doesn't last. It's not about speed. It's not about volume. It's not even about skill. It's this: slow down to build alignment. Because when you move fast without direction, you just make mistakes faster. When you scale without clarity, you multiply chaos. When you push without alignment, you burn out. Most people are sprinting toward outcomes they haven't even thought through. They're building systems without a center. They're chasing momentum without asking the most important question: does this actually serve the life I want to build? You can't afford to move fast in the wrong direction. That's how you waste years. That's how you end up climbing a ladder that's leaning against the wrong wall. That's how you wake up with results that don't fulfill you, habits that don't serve you, and success that doesn't feel like success. So you have to pause, not to stop, but to see. You pause to reconnect with purpose, with values, with vision. You pause to realign your habits, your schedule, your environment, your relationships with the future you're actually committed to, not just the one that's trending. Because alignment doesn't happen by accident. You don't stumble into clarity. You don't find focus in the middle of noise. You create it. You claim it. You reinforce it every day by checking your direction, asking the right questions, and cutting everything that doesn't fit. That means not doing everything. That means saying no more often. That means choosing depth over variety. Because alignment requires constraint. It requires simplicity. It requires having the courage to say, this is the path, This is who I am. This is what I'm building. And then backing that up with behavior. It means checking your pace, because you might be going too fast for the transformation you're asking for. You might be rushing results when what you really need is roots. And roots take time. Roots require repetition, stillness, patience. And without them, you'll collapse. The second things get hard. So build the habit of checking in, not once a year, every week, every day. Ask, is this aligned? Is this who I want to become? Is this how I want to feel? Is this decision being made from pressure or from principle? From fear or from clarity? And when the answer is no, when you catch yourself drifting, you don't panic. You don't shame yourself. You realign. You return. You adjust the compass. Because that's what powerful people do. They don't move perfectly. They move with intention. This means removing the pressure to always be on. You don't have to perform for everyone. You don't have to prove yourself every hour of the day. You're not in a race against the clock. You're in a race against your own inconsistency. And that race is won through clarity, through pace, through alignment. When you live from alignment, everything else gets lighter. Discipline stops feeling like a fight. It feels like protection. Focus stops feeling like sacrifice. It feels like freedom. Habits stop feeling like chores. They feel like identity. Because now you're not just doing the right things. You're doing them for the right reasons. You're no longer reacting to the world. You're leading your life. And that difference is massive. Because when you move from reaction, you chase trends. When you move from alignment, you build legacy. So don't just ask what you're doing. Ask why. Ask where it's taking you. Ask if it's building or just busy. Ask if it fits the life you're building, not just the mood you're in today. That habit, the habit of slowing down to align, isn't a luxury. It's a requirement. Because the life you want to live can't be built in chaos. It can't be built while you're distracted. It can't be built if you're sprinting through misalignment and calling it ambition. The ninth habit is one that turns effort into elevation. Most people skip it, and that's why they plateau. It's this: move with urgency, not anxiety. Act fast, not frantic. Execute now, not later. Because waiting is expensive, and procrastination is the tax you pay for avoiding decisions. There's a difference between being intentional and being indecisive. A difference between being thoughtful and being hesitant. Most people confuse the two. They say they're thinking when really they're avoiding. They say they're waiting for clarity when really they're afraid to move. But success rewards movement, not perfect movement, decisive movement. Clarity comes from doing. Confidence comes from execution. You don't think your way into momentum. You build it step by step, call by call, rep by rep. You must develop a bias for action. When something needs to be done, you don't wait. You don't overplan. You don't rehearse it 100 times. You take the first step, then the next. Then you adjust as you go. Because waiting for perfect will leave you behind. Urgency means living like your time matters, like your decisions matter, like your vision has a deadline. You don't delay what builds you. You don't push off what strengthens you. You treat opportunity like it's fragile, because it is. And if you don't act, someone else will. But urgency is not the same as panic. It's not anxiety. It's not running around chasing tasks with no direction. It's not grinding yourself into the ground. It's controlled intensity, precision, discipline in motion. It's knowing what matters and doing it now before emotion gets in the way. Most people live in hesitation. They think too long, plan too long, overanalyze, overthink. And in that space between intention and execution, fear grows, doubt grows, the window closes, and they're left wondering what could have happened if they had just moved. So you build the habit of shrinking that gap, the gap between I should and I did. You train your nervous system to move before fear takes the wheel. You don't wait to feel ready. You act to become ready. That's how leaders operate. This habit sharpens your instinct because when you move fast, you get faster feedback. You stop guessing and start learning. You stop wondering and start building. You make more decisions, so you make better decisions. And yes, you will make mistakes. That's the price, but it's a small price compared to the cost of never starting. Failure is a better teacher than hesitation ever will be, because at least failure gives you data. Hesitation gives you nothing. So you stop stalling. You stop waiting for the mood, for the motivation, for the perfect plan. You don't need more time. You need more courage. You don't need more information. You need more action. You don't need more permission. You need to move. And when you train yourself to move now, life moves with you. Doors open, momentum builds, resources appear. Not because it's magic, but because action unlocks clarity. Execution attracts opportunity. Energy flows where direction is established. Urgency changes how you're perceived. People trust those who act. People follow those who move. People believe in those who execute. Not talk, not plan, not promise. Execute. And when you live with that kind of urgency, you stop talking about who you're going to be, and you start being it. So from now on, you don't sit with indecision. You don't let tasks pile up. You don't let fear grow between idea and action. You train speed. You move with force. You become someone who makes things happen, not later, but now. The 10th habit is the one that keeps you grounded when everything around you changes. It's the one that keeps you from getting arrogant when you're winning and from getting bitter when you're behind. It's this: stay grateful, stay hungry. Never confuse satisfaction with complacency. Never confuse humility with weakness. And never let progress make you soft. Gratitude is not just a nice idea, it's armor. It protects your perspective. It keeps you from complaining about things you used to pray for. It reminds you that no matter how far you've come, you're still blessed to be in the game. But gratitude alone isn't enough. You need hunger. Hunger is what keeps you moving, what keeps you sharp, what keeps you looking at the mountain you've already climbed and saying, that was good, but I'm not finished. Gratitude without hunger turns into comfort. Hunger without gratitude turns into ego. You need both. You need to look around and say thank you, while also looking forward and saying, not yet. And this habit must be practiced, not just felt. That means every day you take a moment to recognize what you're thankful for. Not just the big things, the little ones, the discipline you had yesterday, the tough conversation you handled, the meal on your table, the opportunity to move forward today. That awareness keeps you grounded. But then you pair it with hunger. You remind yourself of the mission, of the standard, of the future version of you who's still waiting to be built. And you say, let's go. Not from a place of pressure, but from a place of purpose. Because you're not done. Because you're not finished. Because the best version of you hasn't even been seen yet. That duality is rare. Most people swing too far in one direction. They're either grateful but passive or hungry but miserable. But you learn how to carry both. You learn how to smile and still show up like it's war. You learn how to appreciate the win without confusing it for the finish line. This is what makes high performers different. They can celebrate without slowing down. They can reflect without retreating. They can honor what they've done while still building what comes next. That is a habit. That is a mindset. That is a posture you live from, not a feeling you chase. It shows up in your tone, in your body language, in how you move. You're not frantic, but you're not soft. You're not desperate, but you're not passive. You're steady, centered, focused, clear, because your gratitude keeps your heart right and your hunger keeps your habits tight. And when that's your normal, you become unstoppable, because no win makes you complacent. No loss breaks your identity. You move through life with this internal tension, not stress, but purpose, not anxiety, but readiness. So you make it a habit. Write it down. Speak it out loud. Think it on purpose. I'm thankful and I'm not finished. I'm proud and I'm still building. I'm clear and I'm not comfortable. That language keeps your identity sharp. That posture keeps your momentum real. And when the people around you start to relax, you stay alert. When they slow down, you stay steady. When they settle, you set new standards. Not because you're ungrateful, but because you're built different now, because you've trained yourself to live in motion, not in maintenance. This habit doesn't just protect your performance, it protects your peace, because it keeps your mind out of the past. It keeps you from drowning in comparison. It keeps you from defining yourself by any single moment. Because you're not just trying to win, you're trying to last. Gratitude and hunger locked together create the balance most people never find. Gratitude makes the journey worth it. Hunger makes the journey continue. Gratitude reminds you how far you've come. Hunger reminds you how far you can go. And when you live in that rhythm, life moves. Success is not complicated. It's not elusive. It's not reserved for a chosen few. It's built brick by brick, habit by habit, day after day. The people you admire, the ones who are operating at a level you respect, they weren't born different. They built different patterns. They trained different standards. They made different choices over and over until those choices became identity. You don't need a miracle. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need more time or more luck or more motivation. You need new habits. Not habits that sound good, but habits that work. Habits that anchor your life when the emotion fades. Habits that keep you grounded when the pressure rises. Habits that sharpen your identity when the world around you is uncertain. The 10 habits you've just walked through, those aren't optional. They are not lifestyle upgrades. They are foundations. You either build them or you pay for not building them. And if you're not intentional, your old patterns will win. Your impulses will win. The noise will win. But if you build these, if you commit to these, not as a phase, but as a philosophy, you change. Not just what you do, but who you are. You stop drifting. You stop waiting. You stop needing to be told what to do, because now you move with alignment. Now you execute with discipline. Now you lead with clarity. There will be setbacks. There will be days you miss, but missing a day doesn't break the pattern. Quitting does. So you recommit. you recalibrate, you return. That's what separates the ones who keep rising from the ones who never recover. They don't let one slip turn into a slide. They stop the drift. They lock back in. And that's your responsibility now, not to be perfect, but to stay in the game, to keep showing up, to act in alignment with the version of you who already lives at a higher level. And the more you act like that person, the more you become them, until eventually it's not effort anymore. It's just your normal. That's how life changes. Not with big declarations, not with temporary intensity, but with daily decisions, with quiet follow-through, with unshakable habits that compound over time and build something most people never experience. A life that's driven by purpose, anchored by discipline, and built from identity.